this is one possible solution and one possible approach to take to solving the practicing if assignment. So the first thing I always like to do is just grab these, and hopefully what I've got in here is just what was in the assignment itself. So I gave you these signatures, so hopefully you got this far. I'm going to make the forward references. So there's the test, and here's the go back to sleep, and then in main I'm going to put in the scaffolding just for calling this. So this is if my test go back to sleep, and I could say equals true, but since it returns true, we don't even need that. We can just say success, like that, and put the semicolon in the correct place, else cout failure, new line. Okay, so now we've got the call, and we can even compile and test that. Nothing's going to happen. We're just going to get the why I'm getting an error. Hang on. Oh, I'm missing a semicolon here. Okay. So sometimes it is good to compile frequently just to make sure, makes it easier to find the errors because you haven't typed very much. Okay, so it prints out success, but this sort of the default thing that gets returned, it's basically doing this. And you're going to see these warnings go away because it wants something to be returned from this function. And this is sort of the simplest version of go back to sleep, is return true, which I'm sure you all like. Yes, I can always go back to sleep. Okay, let's build that. All our warnings go away, and we should get the same results. Success. Okay, so let's start seeing how long this will work. So here's our first test case. So let's create some variables. I said I didn't want you to use magic booleans. So let's just create one called is weekday, and let's set it to the first set of test conditions, and one that's called is vacation, and let's set that to false. And then the test says this, I'm saying int, I should be saying bool. And this should be what do we expect back? Expected back is, in this first case, is true. All right, now we can write the test. If go back to sleep, and we can pass in is weekday, and we can pass back in. And I should point out what happened there is there's some built-in variables, right? So is WC type, whatever that is. So it gave me a list, so I had to pick is weekday. And we'll see if there's one with a V. There isn't, so it just completes it. So we're going to pass those two back, and we're going to say if that equals our expected result, then let's do this. Let's say if that does not equal. If that does not equal our expected result, well, then our test already failed. So right away we can just return false. Okay, and then down here you can see if we get past this, we're going to return true. Okay, so let's compile that, and let's run. Success. So far this is pretty good. All we had to do was say return true, and we wrote the function. So let's do the next one. So we're going to say we don't need to put the bool. Matter of fact, you get an error if you do. You just need to reassign these same variables. So is weekday is now true, and is vacation is still false, so we don't have to change that one. And our expected value is now false. It was true before, so we had to do that one. So we say if go back to sleep is weekday and is vacation. I could have copied and pasted these lines, by the way. This is identical. It's not equal expected, then return false. Okay, so we'll build that. We'll run, and failure. Okay, so we can't just always return true. Sometimes we have to return false. So let's, what do we do? Let's say if it is, we're testing, let's say if it is a vacation day, it is vacation, then we can go back to sleep. And if it's not a vacation day, we can't go back to sleep. Okay, so that's still pretty simple. Let's build that, and let's run that, and it fails. Okay, so let's say, I realized I just made a mistake. If it is a vacation day, we can go back to sleep. True. So let's try that. And it still fails. So let's add the next test in. Let's say, okay, if it's not a weekday, then return true. And otherwise, we're returning false at the bottom. And not is if. Compilers are so picky. Okay, so now it compiles and it runs and it returns success. Okay, so good. So now we've got a pretty simple test. And so let's get to our third test, and then this time, what do we want? We want true and false. So we can either, you can either remember every time, and there's no harm, and let's just copy and paste. And we'll set the whole condition up. So we're on the third case here of false and true. So is weekday equals false, and is vacation, I'm going to put the is vacation in, is vacation equals true, and then expected equals true, and then I don't have to change anything here. So let's build that, and run, and success again. And let's do the last case I asked you to do, and then in the last case we want to pass in true for is weekday, and we want to pass in true for is vacation, and we expect true to come back. And so we can build that, and we can run that, and we get success again. So if if you think about this, well, true, if it's a vacation, we don't have to we can go back to sleep, and if it's not a weekday, we get to go back to sleep. Those were sort of the logic conditions that were laid out. So you could have done more elaborate tests, but it wasn't really necessary in this case. So this is a valid solution. It passed all the test cases that I asked it to pass, and so I'm done. And so that's an example, and that general approach of writing a simple thing and making it more complex is, like I said, from the test-driven development, where you write your tests first before you write your code. Usually you use a testing framework, but in this case we're just keeping it simple and writing everything right here in main.